Maliki has already stated that he has arrest warrants for over 120 of the residents, and has already mentioned that he wants the leaders extradited to Tehran. And as other members of the panel have already mentioned, again, this is an effort to dismantle the MEK. He's even been so bold as to state, and this is a quote, "Iraq is dealing with the residents of the camp as individuals and in accordance with the human rights principles and rules of international law enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights." This is a blatant lie, especially when you view this in the context of the massacre of 43 innocent civilians just a few months ago, and the wounding of well over 1,000, not to mention the recent rocket attacks on the camp. These actions demonstrate the lengths to which Maliki's government will go to justify their current and, more worrisome, their future actions. This statement alone is a clear indication of his intent. Given the conditions in Camp Liberty, most prisons in the civilized world have better conditions than what will exist at Camp Liberty. Yet what crimes have the innocent residents committed? Is it their desire for a normal life, one that for the past 25 years has been void of basic human rights that we all enjoy? And as Mayor Giuliani has accurately pointed out earlier, they only understand one thing: force, strength. Letters and efforts to engage are not going to prove successful. The use of UN Blue Helmet forces would be an excellent way to demonstrate to the Iraqi and Iranian regimes that we are serious about protecting these innocent lives, and that the international community is no longer susceptible to the political machinations and manipulations by Maliki and the mullahs in Tehran. It is imperative that the protection of the residents of Camp Ashraf remain paramount, and this can only be done through the continued attention and focus of the international community at this very critical juncture. We must ensure that the Iraqi government, absent the manipulating influence of Iran, adheres to the minimum requirements that the residents will need in their relocation, which includes the ability to bring their personal possessions, freedom from surveillance, from harassment, and from the fear of arrest and detention. These are not unusual requests, nor are they special privileges, but rather, as I mentioned earlier, basic inalienable human rights.
Of course, the extension of the deadline for closing the camp was enormously important. But as other speakers have pointed out repeatedly, so much more remains to be done. And there are still problems that would have been out of the way if everyone had abided by the agreements and the MOUs reached. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Prime Minister al-Maliki and his government must honor their obligations in this regard, and turning the new camp, as has been described here today, in effect into a prison with overcrowded and insufficient facilities and living quarters is simply not acceptable. And at the risk of sounding repetitive with respect to the other speakers, I will say what many people have already said once again. The US must remove MEK from its list of terrorist organizations. It's an insult. It's an insult to people's intelligence that this has not been done already. And it's good to hear how our American friends on this panel today regard this problem and how determined they are to get it solved. Just get to work and get it done. Whisper into Hillary Clinton's ear or whatever it takes. Given the history of US involvement in Iraq since 2003, and in particular, given the individual contracts that were made with the residents, the US responsibility in this matter is enormous.